the evidence you are going to give is going to be the truth, nothing else but the truth. If you say so, please raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Oath has been administered.
Mr. Maynard Manyo, is it correct that you are a journalist?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you work for any media house?
Yes, ma'am. I run an online news organization called Kuluma.
We want to thank you for coming before this commission to give your evidence, and we apologize for not being able to accommodate you yesterday when you came. It's correct that you were an eyewitness of the August 1 events as a journalist?
Yes, ma'am. I was an eyewitness of the August 1 events with certain limitations, though. The incidents that happened at Rainbow Towers, along Jason Boy, all the way up to Leopold Takawira, down Cameron Street and back to Rainbow Towers. Those are the incidents for which I witnessed.
Would you now please narrate to the commission that which you witnessed on the 1st of August?
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps I'll start with a small background. During the election season, my team and I had set up a command center at the Rainbow Towers Hotel. We had gotten 2 rooms there, for which one was our newsroom and one is where we retired to bed as a team. On the particular day in question, on the 1st of August, we woke up early and went to the ZEC Results Center together with my candidate reporter, named Mr. Tenda Mareta. While we're waiting for the commissioners from ZEC to come and announce the results, I received a call from my first wife, Motlanthe, who asked to meet me downstairs. She wanted to get some bond notes from me. She wanted to buy a dress in town and they refused to take Echo Cash and Swipe. When I got downstairs, she delayed a bit by about perhaps 10 to 15 minutes, although she had indicated she was downstairs. When I eventually saw her, I inquired why she had called and said she was downstairs when she wasn't. To which she responded that she had been blocked at the gate by a group of protesters and that there was a bit of a skirmish between the riot police, or rather a bit of a standoff. I then proceeded to walk her out of the hotel so I could guarantee that she would leave safely. When I got to the gate, there were perhaps maybe a little less than 100 MDC supporters. They were singing, they were dancing, none of them were armed or doing anything I would say is perhaps violent at the time. They were cooperating with police. The cars that arrived would only experience a slight delay, but eventually the gates would be open and they would enter and leave. So there was somewhat freedom of movement and free flow of traffic. Naturally, and based on instinct, and also based on what they were saying, I kind of figured that they would return. And given that, I think at the time, there was a video that was doing the rounds on social media of protesters who had ran from Harvest House to Africa Unity Square along Nelson Mandela and returned. So I then decided to split with my candidate reporter. She would then cover the broadcasting of the results live from the results center, and I chose to remain downstairs. I think about maybe perhaps you could say an hour to an hour and a half later, the protesters returned again. I was sitting downstairs in the foyer at Rainbow. I could hear them singing. I made my way towards the gate. At this point, they had increased in number. We are perhaps looking at between maybe 500 or 600 protesters. And among them were a group of very young children. I am in company of the footage which I'm willing to hand over to the commission so that they can verify some of the claims I'll make. As I stated, among them were quite some very young children whom, from their appearance and dressing, I made the assumption that these could have been street children. They probably were about 50 in number. And I remember commenting on one of my live videos that I think it was disheartening because a few of them looked at least intoxicated. The language that they were using was extreme vulgar, for which I cannot repeat in front of elders like you. Some of the protesters at the time were bearing iron bars, sticks, stones, bricks, and even the kind of songs they were singing had now changed. Among them that I remember was one where they kept on chanting Wondo, Wondo, which was turning out to war. And another one which they kept on saying, in Shona they say Jikaramba, Toitaje. I can't say the word, but it translates that loosely, that if it doesn't work, we're going to use force. During that time, they protested for a little bit, and as we were there, 3 bricks were launched from the protesters towards the police barricade. One of them hits the security post at Rainbow Towers. To this day, if you do go to Rainbow Towers, one window remains broken and hasn't been replaced. On the video itself, I did go towards the objects that were launched to confirm that they were bricks. 2 of them had split, one had hit a police officer and one had fallen, I think, where there were hedges to the side. They continued for a while, perhaps maybe 10 to 20 minutes, and then they left with promises that they would return. One lady and a gentleman did remain. The lady was sitting right in the middle of the gate. I approached her to ask her a few questions, and I do have that footage. And I asked her why she was visibly irate, to which she answered that she felt that the elections were being stolen. I proceeded to ask her on what basis she thought that and why she felt the elections were being stolen, given that a fraction of the results had only been released. In her response, she then responded saying that the people in the rural areas had voted wrongly and that ZANU-PF was using dead and ghost voters to vote. I did ask her, and I'm noticing her demeanor and also the use of extreme language, that she may have been intoxicated. I asked her if she had had anything to drink, to which she responded that yes, she had taken alcohol, she had taken a local brew called Super, and also taken some marijuana. At that point, I concluded the interview and went back to sit at the foyer as the protesters had left. The protesters then returned a little after 2 towards 3 o'clock in a much larger number. This time we could hear their songs when they were perhaps maybe 500 or 600 meters away. As I made my way to the gate, behind them I could see thick clouds of smoke, and right at the entrance were a group of few protesters. Some of them had torn down ZANU-PF campaign posters, and they were burning them down. Some of them were vandalizing the banner, President Mnangagwa's banner, which was erected just outside, just inside of ZANU-PF, but you could access it from the outside. And this time it didn't take long for violence to break out. Within 3 to 5 minutes of them arriving, they began to launch missiles towards the police. The police reacted by firing water cannons towards the protesters. Now, when you get to the entrance of Rainbow Towers, to your right is what we could say perhaps a plantation of jacaranda trees. The protesters then ran underneath the jacaranda trees, which basically rendered the police water cannons useless, because when they fired them, they go through the trees first. And then they started launching missiles from there. These were bricks and stones towards the police. I think the police were about 20 in number. Some of them erected a barricade, but they began facing quite an obvious challenge in that if they erected their barriers facing the gate, they were still getting hit by missiles from the right. I did take a brick to the back myself, and one of our mounted cameras was hit by a brick and was broken permanently. I did damage a cell phone that I had at the time as we were trying to flee. The police reacted by launching tear gas canisters into the trees. Some of the canisters were picked up and thrown straight back at the police, while some of them were picked up and put in some plastic canisters that had water, I suppose, as a means to neutralize them. During that time, 2 gentlemen creeped up towards the gate and launched 2 bricks towards the police water cannons, hitting the muzzles. And when they hit the muzzles of the water cannons, the trucks immediately flooded. And then that caused a lot of water leakages towards the gate. I did speak to a police officer asking him how they're going to proceed, as it looked like their trucks were flooding, and he said, well, at this point when they're flooding, we have to ask for reinforcement. There's nothing else that we can do. At the time I was talking to him, they were then told that the ZEC offices were under siege. They were towards Prince Edward, which should have been, if I'm standing this way, to the left, and the other group went to the right towards the Rotterdam courts, and the other group was in between Rainbow Towers and the water cannon trucks. I went out and began filming with the group that was at the robots. They were vandalizing robots with horse-pipes, with sticks. They broke a few traffic lights. Some of those images are available on my Facebook timeline publicly till today, including the pictures. As we're standing there, one gentleman approached us, and he was holding a 500 milliliter bottle, which used to contain fruit juice called Minute Maid, which had a brownish liquid that looked like petrol. I did get confirmation it was petrol because he did ask one of the guys if they had a duke or a cloth that they could shove it into and set alight the bottle. They did try this and threw the bottle into ZANU-PF headquarters, but it only ignited mid-air and didn't ignite when it hit the ground. And one of the gentlemen there then said, no, you made a mistake. You have to pour in sand if you want it to explode like a petrol bomb. Then one of the gentlemen then said to another gentleman that, look, we need to find more bottles, go and get more bottles and go and get more petrol. And these gentlemen left. As they were leaving, the people who were just outside ZEC were intensifying and perhaps their semi-violent behavior, and the water cannon trucks turned towards them and parked just outside ZEC. The police had erected another barrier there, maybe with about 15 people as well. They were routinely getting pushed and kicked, and they had no means of retaliation. They're talking 15 police officers, perhaps against thousands of protesters, so they literally had no way of retaliating, and they were just taking it on the chin. There were then intense discussions among the protesters about flipping the water cannon trucks over. As they were discussing this, and some of them were going and banging the water cannon trucks, the group that was at Prince Edward started fleeing. Well, we were standing there and we just saw people running and screaming. And I think on my live video I did ask, I don't know what's happening, people are just running away. Within 2 minutes or so, I then spotted a lone military figure holding one hand with the protesters running away from him, and he was coming in our direction. Maybe 30 to 40 seconds later, a group of about 10 to 12 other soldiers were coming from the same direction. They were holding hand whips, and just behind them was an army truck that was moving slowly. When the protesters we were standing with at the time at ZEC noticed that the soldiers were coming, some of them, in isolated instances, began to launch missiles and bricks towards the oncoming soldiers. But the soldiers kept on coming, and they were hitting people. In one of the videos that has been published on News 24, when I wrote an opinion piece about what I experienced, you can hear me in the video saying people are launching stones here and we don't know how to proceed. I was with a friend who had identified himself as a local journalist at the time, and we ended up just standing in a corner. We didn't know whether to proceed towards the military or how they would react towards us. At the same time, we couldn't go with the protesters, and bricks were flying in all directions. And the only way of protecting ourselves was to cower close to the buildings. The soldiers did come. They did hit a few people, and people were running in different directions. I then crossed. They happened to just leave me alone. I suppose it may have been on account that I was wearing a media brief that clearly stated I was a member of the press. I then crossed the road and I stood next to the riot police, where I felt at this point it was safe. It was at the time that I had the first bang, and in my video, I think, which I'll supply to you, you can hear me saying, I think shots have been fired. Is that a gunshot? The soldiers who had holding hand whips, their first reaction at the time was to cower down a little bit. And then when they did, other members of the National Army then disembarked from the trucks, and they were the ones who were holding semi-automatic weapons. They disembarked and began firing into the air and advancing towards the protesters. Bar one soldier who comes out, partly on a video published and partly on one that I released, who did go into a crouching position and attempt and looked as if he was shooting towards the protesters. I then felt at the time that it was safe for me to go and film from behind the soldiers. Generally, the rule of thumb is if you're covering in conflict zones, if you travel behind the government forces, you tend to be safe. If they identify you as a journalist, they're likely not going to attack. And you also happen to get a vantage point. They proceeded down Jason Moy against the one-way towards the Copacabana area. As we got to, I think it's Harare Street, another journalist had been following us closely. I think you may have seen the image. He was wearing a chiffon that made him look as if he was Arabic, but he wasn't wearing a media beam. He then turned towards one platoon of the soldiers. He went to try and take pictures of them. He's the one who has images where he was assaulted with a whip and then ran away immediately. We continued going down Jason Moy until we got to where Copacabana starts. The soldiers then divided into two pairs. The other ones turned left, going up towards Samora Machel, and the other ones turned right, going down the Market Square direction. At that point, I felt that I had filmed enough of the soldiers, from behind them and shooting. And because of the thick clouds of smoke that I could see down Jason Moy and Copacabana area, I then decided to proceed there and see if I could get any other additional or unique footage. I proceeded down that road and chose to turn as I got to the road that goes to Copacabana. I think it's Cameron Street, if I'm not mistaken. As I turned there was a group of protesters and people generally were fleeing from that direction. I don't know what they were running from. I don't know who they were running from. And as they were running, and as I'm trying to film, from the corner of my eye, I then noticed the guy who was wearing black. He had a black shirt, black t-shirt, and black shoes. And he took 2 steps, and then he tumbled down. And people immediately said, "Baurayamu," which meant that they killed someone. I advanced immediately towards him. I'm not certain of his identity now, but I'm aware that his brother-in-law came to testify at this very commission. And I've seen the images that have been circulated, and the bulk of those images are taken from my Facebook Live video and the pictures I share on Twitter. When I got to him, people were saying, he's dead, and I remember uttering that, well, he's alive. And at the time, he was still alive. And someone said, "Can you dispense help?" And I responded in short and said, "Akutandaza," which basically means that he was in the process of dying. And I could tell because he was struggling to breathe, almost snoring in a way. And I knew at the time, and at the back of his shirt, when it was lifted, you could see the symbol of Kantra just in his chest, just below his shoulder blade. And I knew at the time that the bullet would have gone through his heart, and he had no chance. Of surviving. I stood there for quite a while trying to film in different directions, and I must state that at the time that he took those 2 steps and fell down and died, and the time that I filmed, and if you go through my videos, there had been people behind him, there had been people in front of him, but there weren't any soldiers at the time, especially in that specific area. And I don't know who shot the guy. There were gunshots going around all over town. There were army choppers flying low. But I did watch him take 2 steps, tumble, and die. I suppose being a traumatic time, I don't want to make accusations against people. But the account that this commission received earlier on from the brother-in-law that they've been standing and watching apples isn't consistent with what I have on footage and what I witnessed, and that those videos are available. The brother-in-law to this guy did show up later, and he came and tried to touch the body. And in the video, you can hear me saying, "Comrade, please don't touch him." And to which he responds, meaning that this is my brother-in-law. And I say to him, "Look, if you're not a journalist and you're touching him and you're here and the soldiers come, they are going to beat you." And we did have a bit of a back and forth exchange. So some 6-7 minutes afterwards. As we're having that exchange, we then saw a group of soldiers coming up speed, turning into Cameron Street, but going the opposite direction. We waved at them and we shouted, and then the soldiers, we got their attention, then they came towards us. As they were walking towards us, when they got close and they realized that I had cameras and I had 2 cell phones and I was filming, one of them then retorted to say, "You're on a phone, which translates to you who's holding a cell phone, come here." At that time, he was pointing an automatic weapon at me. I froze for a while, turned, and just basically started running. As I started running, I did hear gunshots. At the time, I just assumed they were shooting at me. And to today, I can't say they were shooting at me or not shooting at me. I was running away. I ran for my dear life, and I ran and fell quite a few times, which is normal if you're running and you think someone is taking aim and shooting at you. I remember at one point falling over and crouching behind the bins. I sprinted in zigzag lines with a colleague who was also there all the way until I got back to the hotel room. I got back to the hotel, I picked up my phone, the one which hadn't suffered any damage. I phoned my wife, the second one. I broke down, after which I broke down, I took a bottle of whiskey and I downed the bottle of whiskey and passed out. For people who had known me before this event and people who knew me personally, I haven't been the same since that day. The article I wrote on News 24 was the first time that I have written any form of a news article since that day. I still see the man's face vividly every time I go to died as I was filming. I still remember being scared. I'm a very young man. I'm just 28 years of age. I have 2 wives and 3 beautiful children. And I was sprinting, running for my dear life. I'm an orphan, by the way. My father died when I was 10. And wondering what sort of fate my children would suffer at the time. But I suppose that's not the business of the mission. And that is what I witnessed that day.
Thank you very much for the detailed account. A few questions that I would want you to clarify. What time was it when you saw this first group of protesters who you say were demonstrating peacefully?
It was early morning, I think, between 9 and 10.
Between 9 and 10. And then you say when you then followed the soldiers, when you heard the first bang, were you able to identify the source of the bang, the loud bang that you said you heard and thought that were gunshots?
I didn't, because the soldiers that were to my left and to my right were holding hand whips. And I couldn't tell the direction of the shots either. Hence I inquired to my friend to say, are those gunshots? And said, yes, I think it's a gunshot. The soldiers were just next to me, reacted pretty much in the same way. I said they briefly crouched down a little bit as if they were surprised, wondering what it was. I assumed it was gunshots. Could have been car backfire, could have been anything else, but it did sound like one.
But you could say that those soldiers that you were seeing at the time were using whips?
Yes, they were holding hand whips.
Were they using them on the demonstrators?
Yes, they were.
But you would say they also ducked when they had this shot?
The first loud bang, yes.
The person you say was in the company whose brother-in-law later showed up as, I think we've come to know him as Ishmael Kumir. Were you wearing any uniform on the day in question?
I was wearing blue jeans, I think a white t-shirt if I remember, but I was wearing a media beat. The Zimbabwe Media Commission gave us one like this one.
Because there's evidence has been laid before this commission to the effect that the person who was restraining the brother-in-law from touching Kumire was in army uniform. And he then in fact told this commission that he retorted when he was restrained, he retorted to say, no, he is my brother-in-law, so you can't stop me from touching him.
Unless the second event happened at some other time. But when the guy was shot, the brother-in-law, I think at the day he was wearing an orange t-shirt and black trousers. He wasn't there, he showed up later. And I have it on video as I'm speaking to him, asking him not to touch the body.
And you confirm that it was you who in fact tried to restrain him to stop him from touching the
Yes,
body?
I did ask him not to touch the body, to which he retorted that it's my brother-in-law.
I have no other business that I would like to put to you. I will now hand you over to the commission if they have any questions for clarification. Honorable Chair and members of the commission, your witness.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarification questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I want to get to the scene of the person who is dying when you are there. Did you drop when you were there? The ground?
Yes, as I was turning into Cameron Street.
Turning into Cameron Street. So in terms of streets, he lied down at which exact point?
Just down Cameron Street after Jason Moy, there is a rank and then there's a place where they used to put a bin in that area.
I mean, after Jason.
Yeah. At the intersection of Jason Moy and Cameron Street, it was maybe perhaps 20 meters from the intersection.
20 meters from the intersection. Okay. At that time, is the army there?
In the streets of Harare, yes.
No, not at that particular point.
At that particular point, no, I didn't see any soldiers. On my video, I revolved 360 to check, and they weren't there at that particular point.
Did you see probably the direction, if it is possible, where the shooting was coming from?
Well, I didn't. I saw people running up Cameron Street towards Jason Moy to reach the guy to two steps and come over. And as I said, there were multiple gunshots going around in literally every direction. There was a police chopper that was flying, an army chopper that was flying low at the time. One of those gunshots could have been, none of them could have been, I don't know. I watched him take 2 steps tumble, and I felt him dying, but I don't know who shot him, but I didn't, there weren't any soldiers at that particular point that he fell down.
Approximately how many minutes later do you then wave to the soldiers that are passing through?
Maybe
coming here?
I think about 8 to 10 minutes later.
When they come, I sort of missed the point when you, how do you get to then run away and be falling? What had happened?
They were quite some distance. As I said, they turn up, corrected up from Speak and we're turning left going in another direction. So maybe perhaps 120 meters away. When they saw we waving at them, they turned and came in our direction. There were 3 of them. As they were getting closer, and I can only speculate and assume that they saw that because I had a camera hanged on my neck and I had 2 cell phones which were filming. Because one of them then retorted that you was holding a cell phone, come here. To which I just turned and ran. It was at that point that I ran when they asked me to come to them. I was holding 2 cell phones. I was standing next to a dying person behind a camera. And the come here wasn't come here, let's go for a date kind of camera.
Okay, at that point, is that when the brother,
the brother-in-law showed up maybe about 5 minutes afterwards, before the soldiers even arrived.
Okay, and at what point does the person die?
I can't say the exact time, but by the time I got the young after that, he was basically in the process of dying.
So the brother-in-law came when he was already dead?
Yeah. He was dying or in the process of dying. I didn't check his pulse.
Oh, okay.
To confirm.
Did you ever then hear of probably how the person, deceased, left the place? I mean, after you had left the place?
With regards to what they did with the body, I don't know. I left. I ran away and gobbled the bottle of whiskey and passed out.
Okay, so that shooting, did you ever find out what happened? I mean, where it came from?
No, I didn't. My candidate reporter, Motlanthe, is the one who then told me about the appearance of the brother-in-law at this commission. We had gone through, she had gone through the videos together with some members of my staff a few times. And she retorted that the guy in the video seemed to shock the commission and he said X and X. That's how I was aware that the brother-in-law had come here. That's when I was in direction of video of this session. I had generally stayed away from a lot of things. In that very evening, eventually, when I didn't wake up, I was extremely disappointed. And I did take to Twitter to express my disappointment. Because I'd watched this stuff from the very beginning, and I'd watched people nudge it a level and notch up each time, and I tweeted about that. And I tweeted in response to a cousin of mine, Cousin Zamano, who had in some ways spoken of the people took to the streets as heroes. And I found that borderline nauseating. I was in the same hotel room with Dr. Ngulule Kosbanda. I think you remember, I think the next day when they stormed ZEC, they were in the 6th floor. And I felt it rich that politicians who were camped in a hotel would have the guts to call people who were launching missiles and people who started something heroes. I had received a bit of footage, images from the ZANU-PF council and Yasazenda, where his bus went. So I knew what had transpired that day. And after that tweet, I became the subject of immense attacks on myself, my mother, my father, my family, my children. I was basically hounded out of town. The level of abuse, I was accused of being gay and in bed with government ministers. I was being accused of being gay and in bed with the president. I was being accused of being on the payroll of the military. I was accused of being a ZANU-PF sympathizer. I'm not even a registered voter. I didn't even vote. All manners and sorts of abuse were directed at me, and I gradually went into the shower. I struggled a lot with the trauma of what I saw. So I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't try to find out. I tried to black it out as much as possible. I tried to pretend that day didn't happen.
Thank you very much. Jenny, further questions? No?
Yes,
thank you, sir, for your very enlightening testimony. And we fully can appreciate the extreme pressure that you were under that day and thereafter. So just a few questions to try and clarify your evidence. We've heard from some MDC Alliance leaders and those involved that they had nothing to do with these protest actions, that it was just really concerned citizens that came out onto the streets. Did you see anything on the day which alerted you to the fact that this was something that was organized by the NDC Alliance, that they were participating in? From your eyewitness testimony or what you captured on video?
Well, not directly. I didn't see any leaders speaking to anyone and saying go into the streets and protest. But obviously, away from that, I was extremely convinced. One, we don't have a storeroom of face bricks in Harare. If you walk down the streets of Harare today, you don't happen to find a cache of bricks in town that are ready to be used and launched as missiles. Secondly, an ordinary citizen coming into town doesn't come with 5-liter canisters that have been cut open and modified so that they can be used to neutralize tear smoke canisters. An ordinary citizen, and I didn't know until I asked the police officers that if you hit the muzzle of a water cannon truck, you cause it to flood. I had no idea. And bar that, the crowds continued to swell. The first group was maybe 100, the second group 500 to 600. By the third time, there were thousands. And there were promises, as I stated, there were repeated promises that it will come back and it will intensify, it will increase. This was stated repeatedly and at different times. And obviously, as I stated earlier, when I said one thing I found concerning was the involvement of children. Children who look 10, 11, 12, young children who look like street children. I don't think at 10 years old, when I wasn't living in the streets at the time, I understood the consequences of the stolen election. I did later on when I grew up in 2008, but I didn't when I was 10 years old. The young street child cannot understand and cannot have reasonable ground unless they've been coordinated to storm ZEC offices and sing an extreme vulgar and demand that we want the results of the stolen election. I just don't think children are capable of understanding at that level.
And from any slogans you heard being chanted, did you draw any conclusions?
Well, there were a number of slogans chanted, as I said. There were 2 songs I alluded to, and there was one that they sang quite consistently, which said Tinoda, Nelson Chamisa, Weshiliki. They repeated the title Chamisa, Chamisa with open palms. They were MDC supporters, they were protesting for the benefit of the MDC. I think that's a clear fact. Before, I think I'd be stretching it if I was to say I just assumed there were 100 people who were just protesting because of any injustice that Chamisa had suffered. They were MDC supporters. Some of them, as I said, the woman I interviewed clearly said she was an MDC supporter. She said she voted for the MDC in Borodale. So there were MDC supporters. Quite a number of them were dressed in bright red, the colors of the MDC. The ones who burnt pictures of Vice President Chiwenga and President Mnangagwa, and they were chanting these poems saying, Mnangagwa Mbaba, Chiwenga Mbaba. We shall say to Mnangagwa, you're a thief, Chiwenga, you're a thief. We are sick and tired of you, TC. So I think it's clear that they were MDC supporters.
Sorry if I'm allowed to translate. There was a part where he indicated that there was someone who chanted saying that Chimoda Nelson Chamisa, which is translated to that we want Nelson Chamisa as our preferred candidate as he is young. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. When you were at Rainbow Towers, you said the police were there trying to use water cannons and also tear gas. Did they fire any warning shots at that time?
Warning shots as in from guns?
Yes.
I didn't see the police with guns. They had those tear smoke dispensers. They look like a gun, but I don't know if they qualify as guns.
So you didn't hear any gunshots at that time?
From the police?
Yes.
No.
Okay. We have seen some video, and this might be later. We have to obviously match all the times together, where there appears to be a police officer from inside the parking lot of ZANU-PF headquarters firing some shots. You never saw any shots or heard any shots coming from that area when you were there?
When I was there, no. I'll review through my video twice.
There was some video from the headquarters, but we'll look at that as the commission. What I just wanted to find out is what time roughly were you there? Because that might help us piece this together.
From the morning, right from the morning, I was camped. I had a room there, or we had a room there. We were sharing a room with a number of colleagues. So we were stationed at Rainbow. We actually had two rooms. One room was our newsroom, where we're consolidating all the news reports we're getting, and one room is where we retired to go to bed. So we were within that vicinity from morning all the way to evening. Even after the shooting, we still went and retired to bed at Rainbow Towers. So we were in that vicinity the whole day.
Okay. But when did you move to the Jason Moy area and to the ZEC offices?
Do you mind if I check timestamp?
Yes, please. And of course, we should say it's a given. We would request to provide all of your video and audio recordings that you have, please.
It was 3:12, that's when I started moving towards Jason Moy.
What time?
3:12, that's when I was leaving the hotel, going
Yes.
down towards Jason Moy.
Yes.
And the soldiers arrived at 3:30. That's when the video starts.
3:30 p.m. was the soldiers
Yeah,
outside
that's when the
ZEC and going into Jason Moy.
He's going into Jason Moy. I went to the guy who died at 15:44. And I'm checking the timestamps on the video.
And those times you're getting from your Facebook feed where you were recording?
No, I'm getting
this?
them from my video in the iCloud, in the video details, the
Okay.
timestamps.
So we'll go to look at that and get those times. Thank you, that's very helpful. So when you went into Jason Moy, you said you went behind the soldiers who,
Yes.
were, who were proceeding east down Jason Moy. And you said that some of them were firing into the air, warning shots. One was kneeling down. Did you see that soldier yourself kneeling down?
I've seen him from the video when I was now reviewing part of the footage that I have. You see him taking, I think, 3 steps, generally crouching down until he goes into a kneeling position. Fires a few times, to which the commander goes and taps him on the back, and then he stands up.
And how far away were you from that at the time?
Maybe 15 meters. I wasn't very far from him.
So So you saw it yourself in real time and then saw the video afterwards?
I didn't notice it in real time. I saw it when we were then reviewing the videos. I had two cell phones and I was filming in two different angles. I had the iPhone 10 and the Huawei P20 Pro. So eventually when I was reviewing the video, trying to understand some of the things that happened before I come to present to you, that's when I did realize that it does appear briefly in my footage.
And when soldiers were firing warning shots, did you see any of those shots going into buildings and windows smashing at the time?
No.
Have you got any of that on your video now that you've reviewed it?
Yes, I do. You're going down Jason Roy and firing this way. And the tallest building you have is net one to your right and then Z to your left. Then the rest are basically your flat buildings.
So your video does show some of those shots going into the buildings?
No. You see them firing, pointing into the sky, not firing towards the building. I don't have a video of them firing.
Okay, we appreciate looking at those videos. Now when you're going behind the army moving down Jason, were they still firing all the time as you were proceeding behind them?
They were firing simple shots, yes. They would advance, maybe take one or two steps, fire in the air, take a few more steps, fire in the air. They weren't firing multiple rounds or continuous rounds. They were just firing in the air, take a few steps, fire again.
Okay. Now I'm just trying to piece this together. You get to the corner of Jason Moy and Cameron. I'm just trying to look at it on the map. And that's where you see Mr. Ishmael fall.
Yes, is he the one who's deceased?
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate you wouldn't have known his name at the time, but we're just referring to that so we have it clear for the record. So am I right in assuming that by the time you get there, the soldiers have moved through that area?
No. When we go down Jason Moy, when we get to, I think it's Chinoi, as I mentioned, the soldiers branched out into two, and one platoon went to the left and one went to the right. I found it pointless to continue following them as I'd already been filming them firing into the air.
Can you put roads to that? I think if
Yes.
there's they go in two directions, which roads would that be?
This is Jason Moy and Chinoi, if I'm correct. Some turn left towards the chicken slice, and some of them go right, going towards the market square area.
So is Chinoy the street just before Cameron?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So some turn left down,
Yeah.
right down Chinoy, and left
Yes.
down up
Up Chinoi, yeah. Some go towards, I think it's the Mora Machel area. It's Kwame Nkrumah and some more, and the other ones go down straight towards the market square.
Yeah. And then you didn't see where they went after that?
I then went past them, and they went in that direction. I then went straight down.
So it's right that you didn't see where they went after that, once they turned left and right?
Where exactly they went now, right now.
Okay. And then you went further on one block and got to Cameron, and that's where you saw this person fall?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes. We're just trying to locate things on the map.
Plot that, I'll give you a red pen.
Bear with us.
I understand.
Yeah, thank you.
So perhaps you could orientate that and help us all. You've said that soldiers turned left and right into Chinoy. You didn't see where they went after that. You went on straight to the next block in the corner with Cameron. That's where Mr. Ishmael fell. If you could mark on the map where it was that you actually came across the body, because I know you mentioned a distance of 20 meters. I don't know if that was 20 meters down into Cameron or 20 meters along Jason Lloyd.
Okay. What I've done is I've put an arrow showing the general direction that I went,
Yes.
and at the intersection with Chinoy, I've put two arrows showing the direction the soldiers went, and at the next block I've put a star or a big dot. It looks like where I found the body.
Okay. That was very helpful. Now, when you saw the soldiers go left and right down Chinoya, how many soldiers went each way? Do you remember that?
They split in half. There must have been about a dozen of them. There must have been 6. I didn't count to see how many went each way, but they certainly split in equal.
So about 6-6 roughly.
6, yeah.
And were they still firing when they went down those streets? Did you keep hearing gunshots, or were you not sure?
I kept hearing gunshots the whole time.
Okay. So even when you came across Mr. Ishmael, you were hearing gunshots around that time?
Yeah.
And what kind of gunshots? Was this rapid fire or single fire?
It was still single shots.
Same as the shots that you'd heard before when you were first hearing them and following the soldiers?
Yeah, in terms of frequency, yes. I didn't get a chance to distinguish this time.
When you came across them, you said that his brother-in-law arrived, was it 5 minutes later?
Yeah.
And do you have that on video so we can get the time? Because obviously it's difficult to estimate time when you're under such extreme pressure.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So we can see him arriving, can we?
You can see him arriving, and you can hear me actually rushing and say, "Comrade, comrade, don't touch him." To which he responds and says, "No, he's my brother-in-law." And I think I responded and said, because you're not a journalist and you're not in media, and the soldiers come here, you are going to get beaten.
And how long after that did the soldiers arrive at that place, that precise place?
Maybe 3 to 4 minutes later.
Okay. And that's when they asked you who you
Not
were?
arrived, but that's when we waved to them, and we were calling out to them to say there's a body. And then they came in our general direction. It took them about maybe 35 to 40 seconds to walk up the road. When they were approaching,
Where were they? They were down the south side of Cameroon coming up towards you, is that right?
yes.
And how many of them were there? The 6 again?
No, there's 3. And they didn't come from this direction. They came from the direction of town.
Well, they were coming up
Upspeak.
up speed. Okay, I'm going to have to orientate again.
Okay.
I do apologize. Let's see. Okay. So okay. So you saw them coming from town, traveling in a westerly direction.
The witness can point out if possible.
Yes.
Yes, this is a bigger.
Can I get a marker?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be helpful to pinpoint where you saw them coming from when you called them over.
So I don't guess when I got to the intersection of Jason, when I got to the intersection of Jason and Speak, the soldiers branched into 2. Half of them went up this way, and the other one went up this way. I continued to proceed down Jason Road and to turn back. The guy saw dying, dropped and fell right here. I continued to film from there, and later on, the 3 soldiers came up to this way.
And were those 3 soldiers armed?
Yes, they were holding on like.
And you called them over because
Yes,
you
yeah.
had the body there?
Yeah, and there were 2 other colleagues who standing there with and some other guy. They had actually came and turned trying to go in that direction. So we had to wave and scream to get their attention for them to then turn and come back. So they'd come in and try to go down again.
And when they came there, what was their first response to what they saw? Do you recall that?
Well, they were walking towards us up until one of them then said to me, "You was holding yourself and come here." In a very aggressive tone, and there was a weapon pointed in my direction. That's when I turned and fled.
Did they take any notice of the body or move towards it or look to do anything in relation to it?
Well, by the time they were getting close to the body, I already turned and started running. I don't know what they did as they got to the body. But when they were perhaps some 15 meters from where we're standing together with the body, and everybody lying face down in the pool of blood, I assume that they brutality the body. But with the moment they said you was holding yourself and coming, I didn't
that's the first thing they said to you. You ordered a cell phone to come here. And you didn't wait to respond. You say you ran straight away.
I ran straight away.
And when you ran, when was the first time that you heard a shot after that?
I think it's probably within 5 to 6 seconds. I did hear the shot.
And how many people were with you when you were running away?
The people I've been standing with, and there was another group of people that had converged, who were standing right here. Jason and Steve, but towards the point. They also said running as well. And I think on the video you can hear me saying, I think the cops are shooting us.
Okay. And the brother-in-law, you might not have seen him at that stage, but did you notice what he did?
We ran with all of them.
Okay, so he was part of the group running away.
Yeah.
The deceased, did you see that his t-shirt was taken off, or was it taken off during the time when you were there?
You see, can I go back?
Yes, please. Thanks very much for that.
When we were there, I did lift his t-shirt briefly and I put it back. Another person who came was also saying they've killed the person, did open, people asking what is that, and saying it's a gunshot wound, it's a gunshot wound. But when we left, his t-shirt had been pulled back up.
Right, so it wasn't taken off him at that stage?
No, it wasn't.
And did you have a chance to look at the gunshot wound? I mean, we have the post-mortem reports and the cause of death, but I just wondered if you could help with what you saw.
Yes, I did, and I have it on camera, on video, as well as a picture.
Very good. We'll look at all of that. Thank you very much for your answers. I might have some more questions, but that's it for now.
Thank you very much for your testimony. When you saw the soldiers around on the street, did you notice any vehicles on the street apart from the military trucks, any other vehicles?
Yeah, there were a few Honda Fit cars, the ones that generally pirate taxis, people jump into them for lifts and get away from them. There were a few, but they were fleeing and leaving town. As the soldiers were advancing, everybody was driving out of town, trying to find the best possible exit.
And did you see any people, any person collecting, trying to collect cartridges?
No, I didn't see any person collecting cartridges.
Thank you.
Just, I think 2 clarifications related to your interaction with this brother-in-law, because he gave evidence when we tried to put it together. Did I understand you correctly that after you had then gone to the dying person, he was the next one to come?
No, not the next one. I think 2 or 3, I mean 3 or 4 people. Some people were running past. He came quite a little later. I think I filmed on the body for about a minute and a half or 2, and even did a 360, walked back towards Jason and speak, came back again. He showed up quite a little later, sometime later. That's when you first see him showing up, and he runs straight. There were some people, and I'm remembering now, we even returned in the video that, no, first with Sazo, first with Yanobika Saza, which is the guy who sells Saza, the guy who cooks Saza.
And then so after it comes, then that's when we get to the soldiers.
Yes, after he comes, the soldiers, we then call out the soldiers a little later.
Well, that means that during your interaction with the soldiers, he is with you.
At the time, yeah, he's in the vicinity.
Then these soldiers that you saw, was it clear to you that they would be different from the soldiers that go in different ways, the ones in Chinwe?
I didn't look. I didn't notice. Generally, men in camouflage tend to look the same. I had not really looked at their faces, and a few of them were wearing balaclavas as well, so I never got a chance to identify them.
Do you see a possibility of these soldiers that you were following being the same soldiers that were coming, or you were indicating that they were coming from the street?
Yeah, they were coming from upspeed. The soldiers that we had followed had branched up into different directions. I I didn't interrogate to check if they were the same people, could have been the same people. It didn't help that when they were getting close by, that's when they said, come here, he was holding cell phone. And me understanding was standing with a body and holding cell phones, I fled.
But in your estimation, do you think in terms of time and so on, it could have been possible that these soldiers were branched in
Had branched and gone to town and came back.
But it's not possible.
I don't know, because when they branch out and I get there and that guy dies, they would have had to go straight one block down again, and come back and short for them to be the same people. I don't think in terms of time, because I was walking down and they would have gone round. I was gotten there before them. But whether they went down Chinoi and then went into town, down Robert Mugabe and came back, I wouldn't know.
But would that be possible in terms of the time element? You were just, when they branch, you went straight, and then that's when
Given that I spent about 10 minutes with the body, or in the general vicinity where the body is, I think it's enough time to go down to Robert Mugabe, go down, come back up speak. I'd like to think it's possible.
Now, your evidence then would be evidence that this body would have been, this person would have been shot after about 15 days after the body that we had shot.
Yeah, so I keep pressing the phone, that's not mine. I think when we turned it 15:44, that's when I started recording. I get to the body around 15:45. So that's round up. So I think he's shot at about 15:43.
Would it also be correct now to say that because we have had evidence that perhaps these people had died before the soldiers came into town? Your evidence would then suggest that that cannot be correct.
With this particular person, I don't know about the other guys who were shot. I try not to speak about things I didn't see, or even as a matter of speculation. But with this particular person, who is the one that I witnessed getting shot and died on my video, he died at 15. He was shot at 15:43. He was probably dead by 4 o'clock. By which time the soldiers had been deployed. I can't say the soldiers shot him, because the soldiers ran in there. I don't know who shot him either. So I know he was shot. He died as I was watching, but I don't know who shot him.
That is very clear that you know, but you would be the witness to say that if anyone says people died, all the people that died on this day died before the deployment of soldiers, that would be false according to you.
On the account of the one that I saw, I would say the person I saw died when I was in the streets, yes. But I wouldn't say all the people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we are not asking you to do that, but we are asking you to confirm that at least one person, according to your evidence, died after the deployment of soldiers. It says after.
Yes, at least one. The soldiers arrived at just after 3. From what I said from the timestamps of my video. And this guy is shot at 15:43, thereabouts. The soldiers were already in town. As for who shot him, I don't know. Did the soldiers shoot him? I didn't see soldiers shoot him. There weren't any men in camouflage at the time.
Don't worry about that aspect of who shot. We're not going to be asking that. We are investigating. But what we wanted you to establish, which is very important for us, is that there has been evidence given that the soldiers would not have been involved or were not in town by the time all these people died. Let's assume that has been the evidence. You are saying that is not the case in respect of this particular person.
Sorry. Can I be very clear that the person you saw shot dead died before the soldiers appeared on the scene, or after the soldiers appeared on the scene?
Just maybe if I can ask you to clarify.
Yes, yes.
Are you asking if the person died before the soldiers arrived when he died, or you're asking about the general deployment of
No.
the soldiers
I'm
arrived?
asking the scene.
At the scene.
At the scene of the death of that one person you saw die. Were the soldiers around at the time that you saw him die, or did the soldiers?
The soldiers arrived after he died.
The soldiers arrived after he died. Good. Let me go back to the scene of the kneeling soldier.
Yes.
You filmed that.
Yes, yes, it appears in my video.
And from what we've seen on the video, he was kneeling and pointing his gun fairly horizontally. And the people were running away when he was shooting, or were they advancing towards him?
No, the people were running down.
They were running away. So he was shooting them at their backs as they were running away. That's important to know. And as Commissioner Maduku was asking, you did not see anybody picking up the bullets, the cartridges?
No, sorry.
What would be your speculative guess about what happened to the cartridges that the soldiers shot? Because I find it puzzling that we have still not seen the cartridges and the bullets. What would be your guess?
Unfortunately, my guess would be extremely uneducated.
That what?
My guess would be extremely uneducated because I am not well versed with what happens with cartridges and bullets. I do not even know the difference between a blank cartridge and one that's got live ammunition. And I never interrogated what happened to the cartridges later. From my perspective, my life stopped when a gun was pointed at me and I was told to come here by the soldiers. I fled. I did not pay any attention afterwards. So I don't know what could have happened to the cartridges. If I was to guess, it would be like a 2-year-old guessing how a child is concerned.
You talked about the other journalist who was running away. Did you tell us that there was a journalist?
Yes, there's a colleague who was with him.
What was that all about? He was running away from what had happened?
When they said the phone come here, and they pointed the fire, and I turned and ran away. He also just started running away together with me and everybody else. And when there was a sound of a gunshot, everybody just ran.
I'm not referring to Brother Lam. I thought you gave us evidence about another journalist who was running.
Yes, you can see him in my video, and I think at one point you can hear me saying to him, I think we need to get out of here. Earlier, long before this was happening.
Would that journalist also be running away from handing over the cameras, or would that be the reason?
Probably. I was running away because I was told to come in an aggressive manner by a man pointing a gun at me. And as I was running, there was a bang. I would like to think that if he was next to me, he would have assumed that the very same fate would befall him.
Would it be fair to say that the soldiers wanted to take the cameras?
I don't know. Look, the purpose of the invitation, or rather the grounds for the invitation, seems tied to my cell phone. Because they use holding the cell phone. They didn't say use holding the cell phone, and the guy next to you, the camera, say use holding the cell phone. I don't know if they wanted to take my cell phones, if they thought I had footage, or they thought I was filming them because the phones were pointed at them. And these 3 particular ones, 2 of them didn't have balaclavas on. So it could have been anything. Had I been able to identify them, I think they would have been the best people to answer why they were inviting me to come towards them. As I said, I didn't wait because I understood the grave possibility that I could be beaten or shot or seriously harmed. Thank you.
Maynard, thank you very much for your detailed narration of events. But when you saw this men tumbling and falling down, and there were no soldiers around?
No, there weren't.
Did you suspect anybody in the crowd to have a fire around?
At the time, no, I didn't, because when I saw a man tumbling, I immediately ran to him. a lot of the questions about who could have shot him are things I only began to reflect on much later, as the scenario began to play itself in my mind. I have tried to analyze it as I go through it time and time again, and as I said, I've gone through these videos for the first time this week, preparing to come here, and I'm still baffled, if not puzzled. I do believe that bullets are not heat-seeking missiles that travel up and down, hunting a specific person in the middle of a crowd. So I do strongly feel that whoever shot that guy was the person who was behind him. But I don't know the person who was behind him. I would like to think if they were people who were further behind them, and they shot, they would have shot the last person at the back, because it was a group of people running away. So it could have been somebody from the crowd. If we were to engage in the balance of probabilities, for example, which can be risky because assumptions can make men foolish, but probably he was shot by the people who were around him, because there were no soldiers behind him. And as you'll see in the footage, I did do an entire 360 more than once. There were not soldiers behind him. There were no soldiers behind me either. There were no soldiers to the left or to the right. There were buildings. There were fleeing protesters and a man who was being shot in the back.
And when you saw the soldiers you waved at, how far were they from the scene of the damage?
Perhaps we'd say 120 meters, because they were at the corner of the next block. We were just where Jason and Speak. They were just Cameron and Speak, which is basically, I can assume it's 120 meters or so.
Before the tumbling of this man, you hadn't seen them?
These particular soldiers?
Yes. And when you saw them, did it occur to you that, oh yes, they could have shot from there? Did you have any suspicion?
When they arrived 10 minutes later, and I'm standing with a body that has been shot in the back just below the shoulder blade, and the bullet's likely gone through the heart and lung, so it couldn't have been possible that it was them. And I didn't assume it was them either, because I'd watched him take 2 steps and die. Unless they'd been invisible, then I didn't notice.
So it is your evidence, therefore, before this commission, that other than the soldiers, there could have been some other elements in the crowds that had firearms?
It's my suspicion, yes.
Jenny, can I just follow up on that? Because I think I've now orientated myself more clearly on the map. But just first of all, you talk about suspicions. Can we go on what you actually saw on the day and what's on the video? Did you see anybody in the protesters or on the streets with guns other than the army?
No.
And in your videos, you haven't recorded anybody with guns other than the army?
No.
Just coming into the map, which I think I've worked out, when the soldiers split in two, and you say 6 went down to the right, down Chimoy, and 6 the other way, did you see, I think you said you hadn't witnessed where they went, but did you see whether any of them then turned left into Speak, in other words, going around the block into Cameron, the other direction to what you were going? You were going one way, round Jason Moy into Cameron. They might have been going round the other way. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see where they went after they turned right.
Okay. But I know you can't prophesize, but it is possible that they could have gone left into Speak and come around the other side into Cameron. In other words, going around the block the opposite way that you were coming.
It's possible they could have gone round and come down all the way to Cameron and gone back for. I think that would explain why I wouldn't have seen them. But my assumption being that I'm going straight down the road and I turn and the man dies immediately at the turn. They have to go all the way down again, and then come back round. I don't think they would have done that round and left before I got to Speak, or at least done that round, gone there, shot a man, and if they'd done that, let's just assume they're supersonic speed, it meant we would have arrived at the same time, and I would have seen them as I turned into Cameron Street myself.
Okay, but what I'm really trying to clarify is what you saw. I mean, when you saw the man fall, you said in that immediate area you didn't see any soldiers. So what are we talking about? A sort of 10, 15 minute radius?
All the way down Cameron Street.
So you were able to look all the way down and saw no soldiers.
As far as I can see.
Yeah.
Down to the right?
Straight down, because it's got buildings to the left, and then when you get to, you've got a taxi rank there. And then after speed, you still keep going down, and I didn't see any soldiers there.
There is a street that goes off to the left. I think that's Park Street.
Oh, yes.
Did you look down that street? Sorry, I didn't get the answer.
No, as in I went down Park Street now. I never left Cameron Street.
Okay. You didn't see anything down, you didn't look down Park Street?
No, not that I recall. Park Street would have been behind me, isn't it?
Yes, it would have been to
behind me,
to
to the left.
But it would have been to the left, yes. So looking down Cameron as far as the eye can see. But then what about to the left is what I'm just trying to find. I'm just trying to get a sense of what you were able to see.
To the left I didn't, because from where I was standing, behind me is, I think, a Qualcomm shop. It's a building. Because Cameron doesn't flip the road and become Park Street. You have to take a nudge right. So behind me, directly behind me is a Qualcomm shop, and then you have Park Street. The roads are not connected. So behind me, up to the Qualcomm shop, no, I didn't see any soldiers.
And when you saw the man drop there, how many shots did you hear at that time? Or before or after that? Just trying to get a feel for how it unfolded.
Before that, there were several gunshots in town. During the time that he falls, there were still gunshots. After, there were still gunshots.
So it was a continuum, really?
There were single shots firing every other second.
Okay. And one last question. I think you mentioned another journalist who dressed in what looked like Arabic gear. Was that the same journalist who you were referring to, my fellow commissioner?
No. There was a journalist, it's a South African journalist, I think it was Eyewitness News. He was wearing a media bead as well. The guy with the Arabic scarf, he does also appear on my video. He did come and looked at the dead body and said to us, don't shoot, and then we all ran afterwards. But he's not the particular journalist who was with me who I fled with together.
So this journalist who came to the body with you, do you know what his name is?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Or which television company he was working?
I think it was Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness
First
News, okay.
It was from Eyewitness News.
Thank you once again.
Were these people running from, they were running from which direction?
From down Cameron Street. So they'd have been running from this direction up, and I was facing that direction.
To where they speak in Cameron?
Yes.
So they were running away from, possibly from soldiers?
Yes, possibly.
Would these have been the same soldiers that had taken?
I wouldn't know.
Because that's, I think it clears what Commissioner Rodney is asking. Because what you see, they're falling, but they are running away, coming this direction where you met them.
I don't know what they're running from, because they were running straight up Cameron. I don't know if there were other people who ran down Speak and turned into Cameron, or some ran up Speak and turned into Cameron, or some were running from down the road, I don't know.
But they're coming down Cameron towards Jackson.
Yes, they were coming at us.
Okay. But it's possible if you get to the right and you go to Chinoy, those people could then be seeing those soldiers.
Yeah, they could have been running from the soldiers in Chinoy and ran down and 10 left. Yeah, it's possible, but I don't know what they were running from.
How big was the crowd?
That was fleeing when the men fell.
So when this man was falling, how big was that?
Maybe 25 to 30.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to clarify again. So they were running down Cameron towards the south?
If I'm correct, it's an incline, so I think they were running up Cameron. But perhaps to avoid getting lost in translation, they were running towards Jason Moyo.
Okay, so then they were running up Cameron north, this group, so running away from something coming up Cameron.
Yeah.
and then running north towards Jason, and about 25 of them, and the person you saw drop was in amongst that group. Okay, and this group that was running away, did you speak to any of them afterwards?
No, I didn't really speak to people, but some of them did comment as they were running past. The predominant comment was Laura Yalan, they've killed people, the ones they were running past. And some asking what happened. There were a few people who said, let's get an ambulance. There was one lady who had a vending store that pushed trolley, and she said, let's put him in a trolley and push him to the hospital. And some were saying, no, we need to get him help. He's still alive, maybe he can be saved. But we didn't have dialogue, no. But people were commenting as they were running past.
Okay, so the group that was running away that he was part of, some of them stopped when he fell and tried to help him.
They didn't stop immediately, no, but people then were also running, because the running continued even after he was on the floor. It wasn't one group that ran past and then the running stopped. You still had people in groups of 2, 3 who were running past, 3, 4, different people were still running.
And these groups were all running north up Cameron towards Jason, were running away from something behind.
Yeah, right, they were running away from something behind, yes.
And it was a continuum while you were there, people kept coming past you.
Yeah, it was. I think only once did I see people try to run from the opposite direction. Who were coming from behind, you wanted to run down, and some of them ran down, then went straight back up. I assumed from my experience when I was then running away, because they could have wanted to run in one direction and saw soldiers or police there and tried to run in a different direction.
Thank you. Thank you for bearing with us in orientating, but I think we have got the lay of the land very well now.
Chairman, you said you were shot in the middle of 25 to 30 people.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And it is in that middle that you did do a check around of whether the soldiers were in that
vicinity, yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Maynard. No further questions. So we step down. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
very much for coming. And you will favor us with the footage?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
So maybe he may be advised that he can take the footages to room 136.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Mr. Simeon Chipokos. Officer, can you please call for Simeon Chipokos? Is he around? Can you please come, because the next witness for 11 is also waiting. Yeah, you also noticed that he was on yesterday's list. Is the one, the victim whom I said whom I could not find when I called out for him, but it appears he was around, but not near the hearing room.
Taura masitazere. Simeon
Chipokosa.
Simeon Chipokosa. Unofika uchichapa ufakazi wechokwadi chokwadi chega pasina chimwe chirudzo kwechokwadi kana uchida rusimbudzo rwutonge rutyi kuti ndinopika Mwari ndibatsire. All this being understood.
Simeon, how old are you?
I'm 19 years old.
Production for children.
Sure.
And it's correct you reside at number 20555 in Budiriro 5.
Yes.
And you were doing upper 6, they say, at Haifudaitu.
Yes.
Also correct that on the 1st of August you were in town with your mother.
Yes.
Would you please tell the commission what happened when you were in town on the day in person? They have your statement, right?
Takapinda town musi wa 1 August 2018.
On the 1st of August 2018, I went to town. I was in town.
Dzanga dziri kuma 3 p.m. masikati.
And it was around 1500 hours.
Taienda paHardway iri muna Harare Street.
And we were headed to a hardware, which is along Harare Street.
Pane zvatenda kutenga.
Is there were items that we wanted to buy from there.
Takasvika Hardway iya yakavharwa.
And upon getting at the hardware, it was closed.
Saka takafunga kuti tidzokere kumba sezvemashopesi akanaka.
We then decided to go back home because it seemed as if most of the shops were closed.
Takamira kombi kuSouthampton. Takuti tasvika kuSouthampton. Takuti tasvika kuSouthampton. Saka takakwira kombi ndokuti.
During that time, we're staying at Southampton, so we had to board a commuter bus which was heading to Southampton.
Takwira paMarket Square.
And we boarded the commuter omnibus at Market Square.
Kombi yazara yakusimuka. Pakauya masoja 2.
After all the passengers were on board the commuter omnibus, there were 2 soldiers who came to the commuter omnibus. They had firearms with them, and they instructed us to disembark and to walk home. I was seated in the back seat in the company of my mother and with the last passengers to disembark. After having disembarked, we then started walking as if we were going back to Market Square. That was the direction in which most people were running to, facing Harare Street. As we were running, we reached at the toilets at Market Square. I then felt pain on my leg. I then told my mother that something had hit me, but I did not know what it was. I continued running until when I reached Harare Street. There was a commuter omnibus which then arrived, and there was a certain person who said, "Young men, get inside." We then boarded the commuter omnibus together with my mother, and we were dropped at Mbari police station. And I was then advised to lodge a report there. From there, I was taken to Harare Hospital. My mother hired a taxi. Upon arriving at Harare Hospital, an X-ray was conducted on my person, and I was advised that there was a bullet. I was then discharged and I went home. I was then given a date which was 12 February next year, which is going to be my review date. The doctor indicated that the bullet can either be removed or not. Those 2 possibilities. As we speak right now, the bullet is still inside. That is all.
Which leg is it that you refer to?
The left leg.
And which part of your leg is being hit?
On my calf.
say you didn't know what had hit you, but did you hear any gunshots around?
As I was running, I was hearing sounds of gunshots behind me.
And are you now fully healed?
I'm still in pain here and there.
I guess this year you were writing your exams, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you manage to write the exams?
Yes, I managed to write it to sit for the examination.
I have no further question for the witness, Honorable Chair and members of the Commission.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Simeon, when you heard that something had hit you, from where to where were you going? You were running towards which direction?
I was in Market Square, facing towards Harare Street.
How far were you from the soldiers that had asked you to disembark from
We left the soldiers standing at the door of the commuter omnibus where we had disembarked.
And when you were running, did you see any soldiers?
No.
So at the point that you had something hit you, how far were you from the soldiers that you had left behind? From where you had left them, how far had you run?
Saka pawakazonza panechinhu kurova amasoja amanamasiya pakomba yanga ari kune nekure sei nepawakazonzwira kuti pane chinhu chakurova.
I think about 20 meters.
Be about 20 meters.
And you were in the crowd when you made this thing?
Yes, yes, we were running.
Are you able to tell the commission who shot you?
I don't.
You cannot say it's the soldiers that you saw?
Haukwanisi kuzofungira kuti pamwe masoja amaka maoni. Sorry?
I was.
No, they're not the ones.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Tabasam again.
I want to understand about the crowd that was how big is that crowd?
What don't zwisisa kuti pane vanhu vaimhanya vachiitisa pai vanhu vanga vakaungana vanga vakawanda sei.
I think about 9 to 10 people.
9 to 10 people.
Looking at Market Square, you were running in which direction?
Kana tichitarisa kuti wanga uri pamarket square waimhanya wakananga direction.
I can see that there is a Harare Street, there is a Bank Street, and there's Bute Street bordering past Kenya.
Pana Harare Street, pana Bute Street, pana there's another
Bank Street.
Bank Street. There's a dumping site closer to Harare.
Okay, so it's about Bute and Harare.
So Bute and Harare Street.
Okay.
Yes.
You were thinking of going in which direction?
Saka ipapo maifunga kunanga kupi direction ipi? We're just following the crowd without having any idea of where we really headed to.
Did the crowd increase from 9 to 10 people?
Saka vanhu matizvoni zvanga vari 9-10 vakazowanda here kupfuura number iyoyo. Yes, the number increased as we're meeting, coming across others who were also fleeing.
Do you know by the time you were shot, they increased this number?
Saka panguva yacho pavakazonzwawo kuti pane chinhu chakurova vanhu vaisvika panguva vangoramba. I do not have an idea.
Could it be a crowd of 50, 100?
Fungidzira 50, 100.
Let's actually below 20.
Figures are below 20.
Which position would you position yourself in the crowd? So were you in the middle of the crowd?
Yeah.
Were you the one leading the crowd?
I was in the middle of the crowd.
Thank you very much. Any further questions?
Simeon, were you the only person who was shot in the running uniform?
Yes, I was the only one.
You were the only one.
Yes.
And could you guess when you were running the distance between you and the soldiers who were behind you?
About 20 meters away.
Sorry.
20 meters away from where I was.
There was a distance of 20 meters away from where I was, from where it left with the soldiers.
And at what point did you stop running?
Saka vakazomira kumhanya pachidanho chipi.
Ndakazomira kumhanya ndamunahara district.
When I was at Harare Street, that was when I was assisted by the people who came with the commuter omnibus.
When you were running away, all these people, what were they saying they were running away from? Would you say you were saying you were running away from soldiers or what?
Saka vanhu vaitaura kuti chii ipapo? Kana kuti vaitaura here masvika kuti kutiza vari kumhanya vachitiza masoja kana kuti chii? Nothing was said. People were just fleeing or running away.
But you were running away because you had been asked to disembark from the computer.
Saka inu
What did the soldiers say to you when they asked you to leave the computer?
the soldiers said disembark and walk home.
They didn't allow you to use the computer when you were to go home.
Vana kukukwanisai kuti mushandise makombi kuti muende fumo. They stopped the commuter omnibuses. It was about to take.
How did you interpret that? Was it in a form of punishment?
Saka nemanzwisisiro ako eni wakatora sekuti vanhu vaikurangai here vaikupanishai kana kuti chii? I did not understand what it actually meant.
Then this bullet that is still in the doctor said they would still decide whether to remove it or to leave it in.
Saka pane bullet doctor vakati vachazofunga kuti voribvisa here kana kuti voramba riri ipapo. Yes, that is what they intimated, that the doctor intimated.
Is that what will happen on the 12th of February 2019?
Ndo zvichazofungwa musi wa12 February 2019 here. Yes.
Thank you, Simeon. Can I just ask, you said you had an X-ray done by the doctors. Did they tell you anything about the bullet that was in there? What kind of bullet it might have been?
Ko makazoona chinhu zvavakataura pane chavakataura here kuti bullet yacho inokwanisa kunge iri bullet kana kuti bullet yakaita sei? Pane chakatsanangura here? Nothing was said.
You have a copy of the X-ray still?
Mune macopies ema-X-ray? I only have one with me now.
It would be very helpful if we could look at that. It might assist us.
Zvingabatsira mukange muchizovasirawo copy yacho yeX-ray.
We don't need it now. We can look at it afterwards.
kwete
As
izvezvi
long as you
chazo.
leave it with us, please. And did the police make any inquiries with you about this shooting and the bullet and the x-rays after the fact?
Ko pane pawakazombobvunzwa nemapurisa here kuti chii chakaitika nekufuna kwako nezvimwe zviviri? No.
I just want to ask you about the soldiers, the two that came on to your bus. Were they armed with guns?
Kumasoja aya akauya pakombi anga akapakata nefuti here? Yes.
And when they told you to get off, how did they do that? What was their manner and tone like?
Ngaachitsanangura kuti pavakataura kuti chiburukai muende kubva netsoka ngaachijekesa kuti vaitaura sei vakachitaura zvakaitika panguva yachoyo. They fired 2 warning shots in the air. The driver then stopped the motor vehicle midway and then he ran away. Some of the passengers had to disembark through the windows. That is what happened.
So the soldiers fired warning shots right next to the bus into the air. Is that your evidence?
Saka pakazoridzawo futi mudenga ipapo vanga vari padhuze nekombi yenyu. Yes.
And did they say anything when they did this?
Ko pane mashoko avakataura pavakaita izvozvo. The order was that you should alight or disembark from the commuter omnibus.
And then when you were running away, how many shots then did you hear, roughly? I know it's hard to remember, but if you can help with what you do recall, even if it's an estimate.
Rangarira here kuti pawaimhanya paya muchimhanya wakanzwa futi tichirira kangani kuti zvinokwanisa kunetsa kuti haunanzwa kana kuti wakanzwa kana kukwanisa kukangana. The number of shots which were shot, but I do not recall the number, exact figure, or how many times the shots were fired.
Okay, thank you very much for your evidence.
If I may follow up, what are you saying now that you were almost about to leave or you were leaving when the first warning shots came?
We were about to take off as we were about to leave.
So, when the warning shots were fired, you got down from the bus, or were you still in the bus? Was the warning shot to scare you to get down?
Saka pakaridzo futi mudenga ungatsanangura kuti zvinhu zvinenge muchibuda mukati pachidanho. The warning shots were fired whilst we were still inside the commuter omnibus.
Was to make you to get down.
Kuti muburuke. Yes.
Did they give you any reason for wanting you to get down from the bus?
Pane chikonzero chakataurwa here chekuti nei vaida kuti muburuke? No.
They just wanted you to get down.
Chavaida kuti muburuke chete. Yes.
And when you all got down, did they do anything to the bus?
Ko maburuka paya pane chakaitawo pakombi yacho. No, I did not check since we were already running away.
Would you say this happened to just your combi? Were there other commuter omnibuses that were affected?
Ko izvi zvakaitikawo pakombi yenyu chete here kana kuti pane mamwe makombi anga aripo ipapo here kana kuti pane mamwe makombi anga ari pakasangana nechitiro chakadaro? Not to my knowledge.
No further questions for you, sir. You may step down, but thanks for coming.
Tabasa nokuya. Tabasa nokuocha kuwaka. Asomeka.
Our next witness is Advocate Prince Machaya. The Attorney General was scheduled for 11 o'clock. I indicated this witness was scheduled for 11 o'clock. He happens to be my boss, so we talk.
Prince Machaya.
Prince Machaya, do you swear that the evidence you are going to give is going to be the truth, nothing else but the truth? If you say so, please raise your right hand. Say so, help me God.
So help me God.
All that you listed.
Prince Machaya, it's correct that you are the Attorney General of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
That is correct.
Can you mind stating your qualifications?
Hold a Bachelor of Law degree called the BL from the University of Rhodesia, which is now the University of Zimbabwe. Also an LLB from that same university. Was initially admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Rhodesia in November of 1976. And subsequently I switched bars and was admitted as an attorney of the High Court of Zimbabwe in May of 1981.
And as the Attorney General is correct, you are the principal legal advisor to government.
That is correct in terms of the country's constitution.
And the reason we have called you before this commission, Attorney General, is for you to explain the legal provision, particularly section 213 of the Constitution. Copies of the Constitution have been provided to members of the commission. 213, which relates to the deployment of the defense forces in relation to section 37(1) of the public post. The relationship between these two sections, if you could clarify to this commission how those two sections relate.
Section 213 of the Constitution deals with the subject of deployment of defense forces. And in a nutshell, it provides that only the President can authorize the deployment of defense forces either in support of the police service in the maintenance of public order or in support of the police service and other civilian authorities in the event of an emergency or disaster, and also on peacekeeping operations under the auspices of the United Nations, or to defend the territorial integrity of a foreign country, or in fulfillment of an international commitment, or in defense of Zimbabwe's national security or national interest. In a nutshell, that is what that section provides. So it's the President, and only the President has the authority to permit that deployment. Section 37 of the Public Order and Security Act, on the other hand, deals with the issue of when defense forces may assist police force in terms of the provisions of that act. And if I may just read subsection 1 of that section, it reads that if, upon a request made by the Commissioner of Police, the Minister is satisfied, and Minister here means the Minister of Home Affairs, the Minister is satisfied that any regulating authority requires the assistance of the defense forces for the purpose of suppressing any civil commotion or disturbance in any police district, he may request the minister responsible for defense to authorize the defense forces to assist the police in the exercise of their functions under this act in the police district concerned. Basically, the essence of it is that if the police forces require the assistance of the defense forces, then the minister in charge of the Police, who request his counterpart, being the Minister of Defense, to authorize the deployment. And my understanding of this provision in relation to the provisions of Section 213 of the Constitution is that the two provisions should be read in a complementary sense, in that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the Public Order and Security Act, being an act of Parliament, should be read subject to the provisions of the Constitution. I do, however, take the view that if the provisions of the Act are read in isolation of the Constitution, they give the impression that the Minister of Defense is the one who's the ultimate authority in the deployment of the defense forces for purposes of maintaining law and order within the country. And perhaps could be better phrased, but I don't think it's an issue really of the provisions of the Public Order and Security Act requiring alignment with the Constitution. When the Public Order and Security Act was published in 2004, I think it was under the auspices of the former Constitution, which also had a provision to the effect that only the President could authorize the deployment of the defense forces. I'm not sure if I have answered your question.
Thank you very much. Yes. So in your view, you would say the two can still be read together without the need to amend the POSA?
Yes, I believe so, because the Minister of Defense, being Minister of Defense, will always be aware of the provisions of the Constitution, which stipulate how deployment of defense forces is carried out. So there is not likely to be any confusion in his mind as to the nature of the authority that is required.
I think I have not even further clarity that I would require. I will now ask the members of the Commission to ask you any questions should they have any clarity. Honorable Chair and members of the Commission.
Thank you very much, AG, for coming. Any clarity questions? Gentlemen?
Thank you very much, Attorney General, for your insightful presentation. My question relates to the Defense Forces Act, National Defense Act. Does it make any reference to the deployment of the defense forces in support of the civil power, in support of the police?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that I haven't perused the Defense Act before I came here. So I cannot enlighten the Commission on that specific issue. But in my recollection, from my previous reading of it, I'm not aware of any specific provision relating to the nature of assistance which the defense forces may give within the country at the request of the police forces. I'm not aware of any such provision being in that act.
But in your opinion, don't you think that there is a possibility for one to misinterpret or to have a different perception of the public order and security as it stands right now?
Yes, as I've already said, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, a member of the public reading the Act, independent of the Constitution, will get the definite impression that the Minister of Defense is the person authorized to give, empowered to give the necessary authority for defense forces to be deployed for purposes of maintaining law and order within Zimbabwe. Definitely that impression will be created. But as I've said also, the minister himself would be under no such misapprehension.
I'm sorry, since I'm not a Zimbabwean, so excuse me for my ignorance. Are there any regulations which flow from the Public Order and Security Act?
Not any relating to the issue of Section 37. Not any that I'm aware of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Is it then correct that your expert opinion is that in terms of the law, therefore, when we read them together, like you said, they should be read together, the Minister of Defense then has to obtain the approval of the President for the deployment of the defense forces to assist the country?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners.
Any other comments?
Thank you very much, Honourable Attorney General. Could I ask whether the subsequent provisions, 37(2), A and B, are applicable for the maintenance of law and order if the military is deployed?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman of the Commissioners. Those two provisions of subsection 2 of section 37 will definitely apply. In the sense that the defense forces will then be under the command of the police force in their maintenance of law and order.
And are there any regulations that govern how that should happen, or is that a matter left to the bodies concerned to regulate themselves?
I'm not aware of any specific regulations, Mr. Chairman of the Commissioners.
And under 2B, when it says that the defense forces would be subject to the same responsibilities, discipline and penalties as a member of the police force, what does that mean for the investigation of any allegations against members of the defense forces or the police?
Well, it basically means that members of the defense forces would be held responsible or liable for any acts or commissions that may occur for which a member of the police force would otherwise be liable when carrying out his duties.
So members of the defense forces then become subject to police investigation as any police force member would be, or in fact any member of the public?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for those answers.
Yes,
I don't know whether that will be right. There is a High Court decision that, some High Court judgment, Justice Mangota's decision, that did comment on the work that the Commission is doing. Do you think it has any relevance to what we are doing, or it doesn't affect us? If we might be assisted, if you have any idea. We are aware of that judgment, but as commissioners, we haven't studied it. And then we want to be guided whether it does affect us at all.
I wouldn't be certain. I perused the judgment myself. I also haven't studied, but I perused it. And my view was that one of the conclusions it came to was that the Minister of Defense is the one who had authorized the deployment of defense forces on 1 August. But my reading of it indicated that neither the the applicant or the respondents had placed that evidence before the court, and that the judge or the court arrived at that conclusion merely from perusing the provisions of the Public Order and Security Act in Section 37. That appeared to be the impression that I got. And that conclusion was not based on a fact which was placed before the court.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you for coming to see us. I just want to lead on from your earlier reply to my colleague's question about the defense forces being subject to similar regulations and treatment as the police when they are performing law and order duties. Would that, in your view, mean that, for example, the soldier who was seen kneeling down shooting could be investigated in the normal way that the police would be investigated if they were involved in that sort of act?
Yes, most certainly, Mr. Chairman.
No further questions. Thank you for coming. You may step down, sir.
I'm most obliged.
Thank you.
Our last witness is Mr. Mordecai Pilot Masham. Mordecai Pilot Masham, I just been advised that he's here, and I made to understand that he's the one who is coming on behalf of the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights. The fourth witness I've indicated on the list is a
Yeah, my name is Mordecai Pilot Mashami. Sorry? Yes.
Mordecai Pilot Motlanthe, do you swear that the evidence you give is the truth, nothing else but the truth? If you say so, please raise your right hand. If you say so,
So help me God.
what has been administered?
If I may also indicate that there was also one witness who have yet to wait because of the time that we then had to take with other witnesses. I would want to, on behalf of the Commission, to apologize for keeping you waiting.
Understand. Thank you.
As I indicated, I think I believe Mr. Masham is the one who is coming on behalf of the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights. He is a very senior lawyer here in Zimbabwe.
Thank you.
We don't have their report or a statement before, but maybe if I could ask if they have the report, because they indicated to me that they will be bringing their report and we make copies for the Commission.
Yes, we do. We do have the report here, together with a subsidiary document that I'll speak to briefly.
So, Mr. Masham, would you now, on behalf of the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, would you now inform the Commission that which you think is relevant for their mission? Thank you.
Thank you. I must confirm that I'm here with Belinda Chinowawa. She's one of our lawyers at Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights. And I thank the Commission for inviting us to make this presentation. We did submit earlier our own report and observations, but we've since prepared a slightly amended document, which is the one that I handed out just now. And I believe we have sufficient copies for the commissioners. And in addition to that, there is another document that I have included, which I'll speak to briefly. Chairman and Commissioners, as you may very well be aware,
when the president of Zimbabwe announced this commission, as Zimbabwe lawyers human rights, we had our reservations about it for a variety of reasons, and we actually went to court to try and deal with that. And our third application was dismissed, but in any event, by that time, the commission was more or less in place. But we still have reservations. As Zimbabweans and as patriots, we do hope that, in spite of our reservations, something good will come out of this commission. But these are reservations, if I may just outline them. Perhaps I should say also that we cannot give evidence on the events of 1st August 2018 because we did not record them. None of us knew that things would develop the way they did. And what we saw was probably what everybody else saw, which was either on TV or on social media. So I would not speak to that because I don't believe that is reliable evidence. But these are the issues that concerned us. As we have stated, and our report says so, we are a human rights organization composed largely of lawyers in private practice. We are concerned about human rights. We try and promote the observance by the state and state actors and others of human rights and the rule of law. These are some of our reservations, Chairman and Commissioners. We were concerned that events like these were addressed by way of a commission because we believed that the killing of the people that died and the injuring of those who were injured were criminal acts and should have been dealt with like criminal acts. And the perpetrators should have been arrested and be dealt with, whether they were private individuals or members of the defense forces. There are provisions in our laws for that. So we felt that the setting up of a commission to deal with what are really criminal acts was something of an overreach by the state. But there's another aspect of that which was a concern to us, which is this, that as a result of the events of 1st August 2018, a number of people were arrested and brought to the courts, and prosecutions, as far as we are aware, are ongoing. Which means that the state mechanisms had the capacity to identify perpetrators and the ability to deal with them. It was our concern to us that then, while we saw images of members of the defense force firing weapons, and in some cases with anecdotal evidence of people being beaten up by soldiers, nothing seemed to be done to them. So we must now have a commission inquire into that long after the event. I cannot for the life of me believe that either the police or the commanders of those defense forces would not have been aware of the perpetrations, or the infractions and the criminal acts. So that was a concern to us. We are further concerned that, and we hope this does not occur, Chairman and Commissioners, that this commission might actually be used as a way of, putting this somewhere in the back burner so that we never get to know what action the state is going to take as a result of those events. I should say that in this country, over the past 30 or so years of independence, there have been other events that I'm sure you've heard about, testified here, which have resulted in commissions of inquiry being set up. And the unfortunate outcome is that none of those reports were ever publicized. And as a matter of fact, Zimbabwe's human rights went to court to seek an order for the publication of one of the reports which dealt with the Material massacres, normally called the Kukurawundi massacres. And I should say that in defense of the government of Zimbabwe, the then Minister of Justice, who is now the President of Zimbabwe, declined to make that report available, simply saying it could not be found. it's a concern that we have that perhaps we'll have all these deliberations here, take evidence from people who are well-meaning and would like to see this matter properly resolved, and then perhaps the report does not see the light of day. It would be my hope, Chairman and Commissioners, that that does not happen. The other matter that I should mention, perhaps in passing, is that I had the opportunity of listening to some members of the Defense Forces give evidence before you. And obviously, without any personal knowledge of what transpired on that day, other than images that I saw like everybody else, I was rather concerned with that evidence, and I hope that you'll have a way of verifying it, of testing it, of determining whether or not it is true. But I can just tell you, as a Zimbabwean who has been in this country for the entire duration of our independence, that some of those accounts sounded, disturbingly familiar, which is just a simple denial of the truth when confronted with it. In that respect, I would mention that our defense forces do not have an unblemished record in these matters. And I have, in the second document, which is part of the documents I made available, set out some of the judgments that Zimbabwe lawyers of human rights has been involved in. Against,
that second
yes, it says some judgments on cases taken against the Zimbabwe National Army. It was distributed.
I think we need it, the current.
Shall I pause here while you perhaps look at it? Because I'll just
in the process of getting them.
Thank you. You'll see that the first matter that we've highlighted is a matter that was dealt with by the Southern Africa Development Community Tribunal, which has since been disbanded, and disbanded at the behest of the government of Zimbabwe, by the way. And in that case, the Zimbabwe National Army was sued on behalf of individuals, and they defended that case. They denied all wrongdoing, but there was a finding against them. And that perhaps we can say, well, it was a foreign tribunal. But if you look at the other matters that we've highlighted, Munengami and Minister of Defense, which was dealt with in 2003, as far back as that, and we've summarized it there, you'll see that once again, there was complete denial of wrongdoing. And yet, a judge of the High Court made a finding against them, the Zimbabwe National Army. And there was yet another matter, which we have cited. There is a 2006 judgment, Collegian Minister of Defense. And there again, this matter went all the way up to the appeal court, and there was a finding against the Minister of Defense. And another matter in 2006, where she and the Minister of Defense, and there again, after a fierce contestation, there was a finding against the Minister of Defense. And I think it's the final matter, that of Terra and Minister of Defense. And there again, a similar outcome. These are completed matters, but I simply highlight them to show that we have not yet have a situation where the Ministry of Defense or the Army, as the protectors of the people of Zimbabwe, have admitted wrongdoing without having to be sued. The general response when these things are highlighted is total denial. And it's a culture that has developed over many, many years. So, Commissioner, Chairman and Commissioners, you will excuse our skepticism when we listen to the Commander of the Army giving his own take on the events of 1st August, giving his own explanation as to how he feels they arose and who was responsible. We were incredulous. We're incredulous, firstly because the account did not make a lot of sense from a man of his position. But more seriously, because in our own experience in dealing with the Ministry of Defense and the Army, they rarely ever admit their wrongdoing. And it is our hope that in your deliberations, you might assist them see that there is merit sometimes in owning up to the truth. You know, and there mustn't be a credibility gap between the people that they defend and those who defend us. It would be tragic if that persisted. You know, I subscribe to the belief that after the events of 2017, our nation has an opportunity of regaining a lot of lost ground. But this cannot happen unless we go back to the fundamentals. First, the nation must be trusted by its people. If it can't be trusted, then I think it's a tragedy. Chairman and Commissioners, if I may then just draw your attention to our report, which has also been distributed. I do not wish to take your time and go through it. We'll try to highlight those issues that are of concern to us as an organization. And as I said earlier, we did submit a report on the 12th of October. We then submitted today a slightly revised one, which is in essence not very different from the one we submitted earlier. But it captures our take on these events and the reservations that we have. Finally, and as I've said earlier, I don't really wish to take too much of your time. You know, it is my hope on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues at Zimbabwe as Human Rights that something good comes out of this. You know, we have Zimbabweans sitting on the commission. I'm sure they'll do the right thing on behalf of their country and their citizens. And we have visitors coming from abroad who I'm sure have a lot of goodwill for this country. And we'd like to see us get back on the path that we can all be proud of. And I do hope and pray that we can achieve that. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I don't know if my colleague wishes to add anything. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But
thank you very much, Mr. Motlanthe. I do not have any questions for clarification. I will now hand you over to the commissioners if they have any questions. Honorable Chair and members of the commission.
Are there any clarifications? Anybody?
No clarifications, Mr. Chairman, but thank you very much, Mr. Motlanthe, for coming to appear before the commission. My request would be that maybe you give us some recommendations, to the commission as a way forward in our country, looking at the events of the 1st of August as an organization.
We have made suggestions in the report itself. But in addition to what is in the report, I would hope that matters of this nature are dealt with in accordance with our existing laws. We have all manner of laws in the Defense Act, in the criminal law legislation to deal with matters of this nature. And all we ask is that they are enforced. But also, Zimbabwe is a signatory to all manner of international conventions dealing with human rights and how you deal with your citizens. We've signed this voluntarily. And all we ask is that our government and government affairs and agents live by them. We're not asking for something extraordinary. These are things that they've signed voluntarily. And this is what the rest of the community in the world subscribes by. So that's all we ask for. And they're a guide. They help people, they help civilized nations, observe the tenets of a civilized nation. And that's all we ask for, really. And we do not believe that there should be a debate about that. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Motlanthe. Page 5 of the report, we talk of circumstantial evidence. I'll ask you to explain, just in summary, exactly what you are saying in that particular section. For the understanding of people like myself who are not lawyers.
I think what we're trying to explain there is that this is not direct evidence. It is circumstantial evidence. It must be treated as such. In a way, it's conclusions that you draw from the circumstances as opposed to the actual direct evidence that you can attest to. I don't know if my colleague might wish to add to that.
The allusion to circumstantial evidence was in the context of the fact that there's very little eyewitness testimony of the events of the 18th of August. But given the totality of all the facts, the fact that there were soldiers deployed on that day, that the soldiers were armed, that no civilians were arrested with arms on them, when all those facts are put together, circumstantially, it is reasonable for this Commission of Inquiry to conclude that indeed the Zimbabwe National Army was responsible for the fatalities that occurred on that day. So that's the context in which we gave apparent and circumstantial evidence.
I think perhaps I can add that also the other thing that I'm sure those who were watching those events would have noticed was that initially the attitude of the police who were in trucks and their interaction with the crowd of protesters, of demonstrators, was actually quite positive. It was very interesting. They were shaking them and everything else. And so suddenly people get shot and then we say, but what caused this? We're not there, we can't attest to that, but you then must conclude that how did you move from that scenario, which we saw, to shooting and killing people? So yeah, that's where you talk of circumstantial evidence. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does, but let me draw your attention to the last paragraph, which
Are you talking about the last page?
of the circumstantial evidence.
Okay.
And the way in which you put it here, it said, which is your conclusion on that particular section of circumstantial evidence. You say that simply put, circumstantial evidence provides a basis from which the fact in dispute can be inferred. The silent question to be answered is whether the army personnel are responsible for shooting and killing civilians beyond reasonable doubt. All circumstantial evidence depends ultimately upon facts which are proved by direct evidence. Is this the conclusion under circumstantial evidence?
Yes.
That you want the commission to be seized with?
Yes, I think there's lots of case law on that point actually.
Okay.
Where you can establish facts which lead you to one inescapable conclusion. That conclusion is valid, although you don't have direct evidence of that. I think that's the point that we're trying to make.
Thank you. I'm clarified on this point. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Rick.
Thank you very much for your evidence today. I just wanted to start by indicating that it may be that the role of the Commission is not mutually exclusive from actions to be taken as part of the criminal justice system, given that our mandate is a lot broader and looking at root causes and recommendations for the future, which we hope can assist. But following on from that, I therefore wanted to ask on circumstantial evidence, which is certainly very powerful evidence on an equal footing, in fact, with direct evidence. It's not inferior evidence, depending on the nature of it, of course. But do you think a commission like ours has to find beyond reasonable doubt? Is that the standard that you think we need to apply, given that we're not a criminal court? Could we look at things at a lower standard of proof? I'm not putting you on the spot here, but just see if you have any ideas. It's obviously a matter that we have to discuss as well.
Indeed. Well, thank you. It's a very interesting question. I would answer it in this way. Firstly, as a general proposition, on your own conclusions as a commission, I would think that the standard is low. I would think that the balance of probabilities is sufficient. But I would also say that if you are going to make a finding on whether somebody committed a crime, then you probably now have to go a step further and say beyond a reasonable doubt. It depends on the nature of the findings that you are making. But I think as a general proposition, I think I would expect that you'll be satisfied with on a balance of probabilities. Because at the end of the day, you're not a criminal court, and you'll be making recommendations to the government that will then have to decide what action it takes.
And the civil standard for paying damages is a balance of probability.
That is
much
quite
lower
yes,
than the criminal standard.
It is a lower threshold, yes.
I wanted to then just ask about the protesters on the day. I know you say you can't give any evidence about that, but we've heard lots of evidence that there was violence coming from the protesters as well. We've seen the footage of it, cars burning. It's a very important part of the evidence for understanding what happened on the day. Do you have any comments on that, on the way in which protest action should be undertaken? Because I think when we look at human rights as a whole, of course we have to look at the protection of people by the police forces and the army, but what about the responsibilities of those who take protest action?
Well, there is very little doubt that although the right to demonstrate and protest is protected in our constitution, is subject to the rights of others to go about their business peacefully. So there is a responsibility of those who do it to do so peacefully. Absolutely. No doubt about that.
And do you have any suggestions or ideas that we might be able to build on for recommendations in that regard to ensure that the events that we saw where violence spilled over don't occur in the future?
Well, it's a difficult one in many ways, but I would think that, you know, when you have these demonstrations and protests, there's always somebody who's organizing them. In other words, somebody has to take responsibility. And I think that as a general approach, there should be a commitment to ensure that whatever protest or demonstration takes place, it acknowledges the rights of others who may not necessarily want to be part of it and may want to get on with their own business. So yeah, that's all I could say, that, you know, maybe a bit of education on the part of our population is important, that people recognize that, you know, you enjoy your rights and at the same time observe the rights of others.
Thank you very much for your evidence.
Thank you very much for your submission. Mine is a general question. Have you ever held forums such as seminars to discuss issues of human rights with the security forces, political party, members of the political party, leadership of the political parties, and other stakeholders?
Yes, we have actually. But also, you know, they have to allow us to do that. So I'm sure, Belinda, you can speak to that. But we've had programs in terms of which, you know, the prisons and the police, particularly at the junior level, are called and give them lectures on some of these subjects in order to try and instill a culture of, you know, placing the value of human rights.
Unfortunately, we've had constraints in accessing the Zimbabwe Republic Police. In the past, we've done trainings for Zimbabwe prisons and correctional services because they were open enough to allow our members of staff to do so. But we have not managed to have any kind of trainings with the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, and we would welcome any sort of recommendations that the Commission could make that would enable us to access them and, you know, create maybe a human rights curriculum as part of their training.
Thank you.
My question or contribution goes to section .22 of your paper. I think it's on page 4. Starting page 4. It is titled "The Presence of Members of the Executive Institute." I noticed from. Are you there?
She's found it.
I noticed that you have indicated that the terms of reference are not clear on those issues, the 3 issues that you specified. I I notice them. But then I indicate, I see that you really want the commission to make findings with respect to those issues. Just to enlighten the commission as to how important it is to either you or members or the public to get these issues determined.
No, it is important because in terms of our constitution, you know, maintaining law and order within the country is a responsibility of the police, not the defense forces. And when that happens, there are processes that are stipulated in the law that have to be followed to ensure that that is done lawfully. And in this case, you may already have had evidence on it, I don't know, because I'm not able to follow all your deliberations, but we believe that it is a key issue to determine the justification for the army going out there doing what it did and getting involved in the maintenance work, because that is not their function in terms of our constitution. And we think it's important also what your observations at the end, recommendations are, because, you know, historically in our country, the police have always been able to maintain law and order. And this was a departure from what we've experienced in the past. I know that post the events of October 2017, you know, the army got a little more involved in our lives than it has done in the past. But we thought that was behind us. So I think it's an issue that we feel that should have been specifically highlighted in your terms of reference, so that you investigate it properly and be able to make recommendations on it.
Could I say, while agreeing with you that the circumstances led the police having to be assisted by military maintaining law and order has to be very thoroughly investigated. But I take it you're not unaware of situations in many other countries where the military has been deployed in situations that would normally be the responsibility of the police.
I can't say I'm aware, I mean, it's just my ignorance, but I would simply say that that really ought to be an exception.
Yes.
Because, you know, I also assume that the training of, you know, the army is different from the training of the police.
Oh, indeed, indeed.
And they play different roles.
Yeah.
And that demarcation is very important. It's deliberate. And in our law, the law says how it should be done.
No, I take all that, but I just wanted to be sure that you're aware that the deployment of the army, law and order maintenance has happened in many other countries, including developed countries.
I'm sure.
Yes, right.
Mine is a follow-up question. You clearly stated that you've made plans and recommended training programs to the security sector, and the access has been problematic in some cases. But I didn't hear your response in terms of you developing programs, training programs for the political parties. I think the follow-up question to questions asked by one of the commissioners.
Yeah. Look, Belinda will have to assist me here. I'm not aware of a specific program for political parties per se, but it's something that if we had the resources, I would recommend that we do, because obviously the events of first October suggest that that might have been helpful.
Are you saying that you have not attempted to assist in that regard?
I don't believe so. I don't believe we have a program that covers political parties. Just perhaps to say that, you know, we have to have funds to do these things, and there are priority areas. The bulk of the work that we do is in defending people that require defense in criminal matters and have no resources. And these are human rights related matters and matters of public interest. So we've got to be very careful with our budget. We're not a rich organization.
Now, with the full knowledge of what ensued, do you believe that it's an area that as human rights lawyers you may need now to approach the political parties? I mean, or even resource mobilize rather for that good cause?
Well, in the light of what has happened, I think it might be a very useful and important exercise, always subject to budget permitting.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask one further question. I just wanted to check whether any persons have come forward to you with complaints and reports about what had happened on the 1st of August. I know you say you weren't there, but I don't know if you've received any information that you might be able to hand over to us to consider.
Yes, in fact, one of the reasons why I'm the only one here, aside from my colleague Belinda was at the office, that some of my colleagues are actually involved in dealing with people who come forward to us, either because they've been arrested and have been prosecuted, or they've been accused of having been involved in some way, and therefore there was a feeling that they would be conflicted if they appeared before this commission. So yeah, we have had reports.
So you would be able to provide that information, providing the person's consented and they didn't believe there was any conflict, because what we receive cannot be used against people in any way.
I should think that within reason it should be possible. But I must say that it really would have to be a decision of those who are hanging in those matters. I would make the recommendation, but they must make that decision.
Well, any relevant information we could get, we much appreciate.
I understand now, so I can go on that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Makamu and Belinda, for your testimony and the notes that you shared with us. Much appreciated. Please, thank you.
That was our last witness for today. Where we may be handed over the copies of the X-ray and see. Yeah, maybe at this juncture we may break for lunch and also to notify the people that our next hearing will be on Monday at 2 o'clock. All right.
So this is it today, viewers. The commissioner will be sitting again on Monday at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much for watching. Please keep on clicking our Facebook links for other live videos. Thank you very much.